Heading into his first NBA offseason, what should Ausar Thompson work on heading into his second year in Detroit? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off, we got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Later on in the podcast, should the Pistons have some interest possibly in a former Detroit Piston coming onto the coaching staff, maybe replacing their current head coach if they decide to move on from Monty Williams? Also, LeBron James shouts out a former Detroit Piston going back a few years in the playoffs. We'll talk about that as well. But I want to start this podcast off by talking about Ausar Thompson. Obviously, the Pistons' 5th overall pick last year just finished up his rookie season. Everyone knows that I was extremely high on Ausar Thompson heading into his rookie year. And after his rookie year, I remain pretty high on him still. I remain relatively the same place I was before the season during the draft process. I think he has a boatload of potential. I think he has incredible two-way potential. He has a lot to work on. I'm about to talk about that. But I think his potential is absolutely off the charts. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of he's one of the best athletes, if not a top 5 athlete in the entire NBA. He has incredible feel. He plays the right way. Combine all that into one, that's just a player that has a crazy high ceiling to me. So I'm still pretty high on Ausar Thompson. And before we get into the things I think, if I had to pick one thing he has to work on, before we get into that, I do want to say, obviously, pretty serious health concern. He's being treated for a blood clot. Obviously, we know about this. Hopefully, praying everything goes right with him this offseason. He gets back to full strength. He's able to be in the gym and ramp up his workouts. He's able to be ready for training camp. Hopefully everything is going to be completely okay with him. That's obviously what everyone's hoping, wishing, and praying for. So just want to point that out first. But just talking about his game, what do I think he needs to improve on heading into his second year? Now, I think the easiest answer, obviously, is his outside shot. And I'm not choosing his outside shot for this reason. You guys will know also, if you listen to the last episode with Jay and Ivy, I did the same thing with Jay and Ivy. I'm not going to be picking skill sets or specific skills for someone to improve on that I don't think is relatively realistic to expect this offseason. Like, for example, obviously, Ausar shot 18% from deep this year. If he can get up to 40%, that's what we need to work on. Well, yeah, obviously, but is that realistic? Should anyone think it's realistic for Ausar Thompson to go from being an 18% three-point shooter to a great three-point shooter next year? No, it's just not. It's not realistic, at least to me. I don't know how many people that would be realistic to, but I don't view it as realistic. So I'm not going to say his outside shot. I think that's going to be a slow and steady build-up. Instead, I'm going to pick something that I think he can improve on in one offseason that would warp his game around or completely change his game around. And that is his ball handle. Going back to the pre-draft process. Now, before the draft, I was a lot higher on his outside shot. To this day, I don't understand how he shot this badly from deep. He shot from the NBA three-point line at OTE. He was making off the dribble threes at OTE, especially at the end of the year, like step backs, pull-ups, side steps. Like, he was doing stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, he got to the NBA, came and hit a catch-and-shoot shot. And his shot looks completely unorthodox. I don't know. It was a complete shock to me. I didn't expect him to be a great shooter, but nowhere in my wildest dreams did I expect him to be this bad of a shooter from beyond the arc this season. I just did not expect it at all. But anyways, what I'm saying is, going back to the pre-draft process, one of the reasons, if you were high on Ausar Thompson, obviously you had to believe somewhat in his outside shot, and I did. It looks like that maybe I was a little bit off with that, but we'll see how it goes. I'm willing to say I may have been a little off with that. But the other thing was your belief in him being a secondary primary ball or a secondary ball handler. And you didn't get to see Ausar do much of that this year for the Detroit Pistons for many reasons. Cade had the ball in his hands a lot. If it wasn't Cade, it was Jaden Ivey. If it wasn't Jaden Ivey until February, it was Killian Hayes. It just fluctuated. And Jalen Duren had a lot of usage as well. So Ausar Thompson didn't really get a chance to be a creator at all outside of being in the short roll. When he would run pick and rolls and he was a screener and they'd give him the ball, that was about the best creation you'd see from him. In the short roll, kicking the corners, lobbing it to people in the dunker spot. Like, that was the best creation you were going to get. And even in the summer league, you saw him create for guys in transition all the time. That was probably the thing that popped off the charts, popped off game film the most, was this transition playmaking. And even this year in the NBA, you didn't even get to see that at all. It's not like he got many opportunities to get the ball for rebound and go. It just didn't happen very often. And part of that was because of lack of opportunity. Could he have done more with obviously more opportunity? I think so, yeah. So that's part of it. But another part of it is his handle is still very loose. It's not as tight as you'd like it to be. Now, from where it was his first year at OTE to where it was his second year at OTE, much improved. From where it was at OTE to this year in the NBA, I'd like to say it's a little improved. But basically, when he first started OTE, it's way better than it was then. He's gotten a lot better. He's improved it a ton. If he can improve his handle, that unlocks a ton for him. That allows you to run pick and rolls with him on the weak side. That allows for you to let him maybe soak up some primary ball handler touches in the second unit. That allows you to have him be your secondary playmaker. That allows you to trust him to get a defensive rebound and go coast to coast. And I think by far the biggest thing, this is coming from someone who is an incredible believer. I very much believe in Ausar Thompson's primary creation upside. I believe in it. It was why I had him super high on my board pre-draft. I still believe in it because of his playmaking ability, his feel, his ability to read the floor. If he can improve his ball handling, that will completely unlock it. But the other thing that maybe is more important that his ball handling will unlock is his finishing ability. His finishing is not as good as you want it, not because he lacks touch, not because he, when he gets to the rim, he misses bunnies. That's not what the problem is. And this is going back to pre-draft. If you guys listened to the podcast before the NBA draft came around, one of the things I said in Ausar Thompson's scouting report was his footwork and ball handling makes his finishes harder. He picks up his dribble too far away from the basket, where if he just took one more dribble, he's laying it up right at the rim. He takes one more dribble, he's dunking on somebody. He takes one more dribble, he's dunking it. Like, a lot of times, he's picking the ball up, and this is the same thing with his brother, Amen. At least it was pre-draft. I didn't watch as much Amen as I wanted to. You guys know I was really high on his brother, but it's the same thing with both of them. Both of them pick up the ball way too far away from the basket, and it forces them to try double clutch finishes. It makes the finish way harder than it has to be. And that also hurts his footwork as well. If you're taking off too far away from the basket, you end up messing up your footwork. It's all kinds of messed up. And it all goes back to his ball handling. If he can improve his ball handling, his finishing would go to a next level. You'd see way more posters next year that you saw this year. You'd see a lot more and ones for Ausar Thompson this year than you saw last year. It's by far, I think, the most important thing he needs to work on. Yes, does he need to work on his outside jump shot? Obviously. But again, like I said, I don't see a realistic pathway where he goes from 18% to 40%, like maybe 18% to like 26%. Like, I think that's something that maybe could happen, but a big jump, I just don't think that's realistic in one offseason. What I do think is realistic in one offseason is for him to become a good enough ball handler where you're giving him those secondary creation reps. You're allowing him to take the defensive rebound, push in transition, create for others, and you see him become a better finisher at the rim, driving to the basket a lot more. Heck, there's a few times, I know Pistons fans remember this, there's a lot of times where Ausar would drive to the basket and the ball would just get knocked out of his hands on his way to the rim, and he'd have to pick it back up. Now he's stuck in no man's land. A lot of that will just be improved if he improves his ball handling. It won't be an issue. The finishing won't be an issue. He'll be a tremendous finisher as soon as he improves his ball handling. The closer you can get him to the rim, the easier it is, and the more likely you're going to get a poster you can buy at home. Like, he's an incredible athlete. He has good touch around the rim. He makes the right plays. He reads the floor well, and he has an okay handle for right now. He just needs to get a lot better for what you want him to become. And I think he can get there. I really do. I think he can get there. And even despite this, This past season, he was in the 71st percentile around the rim, which is pretty good. I'm saying he could get to like the 90th percentile if he improved his ball handling. He could go from good to elite around the basket. Go from good to elite at drawing fouls, at drawing and ones. Like, he could do that. Absolutely. So ball handling is by far my biggest priority if I was the training staff for Ausar Thompson. Improve that ball handling, and now you got your secondary creator next to Cade. You don't need to worry about getting another guard that has a lot of reps or needs to have a lot of reps creating for the team. You have it right there with Ausar Thompson. And I have to believe the Pistons agree with me, or you wouldn't have drafted Ausar Thompson. You're not drafting Ausar because you think he's going to be a sharpshooter. You're not drafting Ausar pre-draft based off his pre-draft stuff to be a shooter, to be like a spot-up guy. You drafted Ausar because he flashed those playmaking reps. He flashed the ability to be a creator for others and for himself. That's why you drafted Ausar, along with his two-way ability. If you didn't believe in this, what I'm saying, you don't draft him. So I hope that they believe in that, and I hope they make it a priority because it would really take him to the next level. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree, disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, should the Detroit Pistons be interested in a former Piston player to come onto the coaching staff? We'll talk about that when we come back. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401ks and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. That's the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Again, that's yahoofinance.com. So I want to thank you guys again for being Locked On Pistons, your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So this offseason, obviously, it hasn't even really started for the Pistons. Like, they still don't have a president of basketball operations. So therefore, you don't know what's going to happen with Troy Weaver. Like, at the very least, we know that he's lost like the final say in basketball, like decisions, or they wouldn't be getting a president of basketball operations. So we know that, but we don't know, is Weaver going to stay as a scout? Is he going to stay as, a GM with different responsibilities? Like, is he just going to be flat out fired? Are they going to clean house? Like, don't know anything. And then you don't know it's the same questions with Monty Williams. Is he going to be fired? Is he going to be let go? Is he going to part ways? Are they going to mutually part ways? Is he going to accept a buyout? Is he going to, all kinds of things could happen with Monty. Is he coming back? Like, we don't know anything about what the Pistons offseason is going to look like. And obviously, without president of basketball operations, you don't know anything about what the Pistons really are thinking when it comes to the draft. Because are they keeping the same draft team? Are they keeping the same scout team? Like, you don't know anything. And you don't know what this president of basketball operations may want in a prospect. So with the lottery in less than a week, the Pistons still don't have a president of basketball operations. That's not even to talk about free agency and having a plan heading into free agency, having a plan entering into the trade market, getting an idea of what the trades look like, what people's values is. And then, you can compare that to, okay, do we want to make this trade versus do we want to sign this guy? Which one's better? Like, all this is not even being discussed yet because the Pistons don't have a head of basketball operations at this point. However, despite that, it's not stopping a lot of rumors from going around about the Detroit Pistons head coaching position. And like we've talked about in the last 2 episodes, it's been mentioned numerous times by Brian Windhorst on ESPN and on his podcast that Monty Williams is a name to watch for the Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously Monty would have to be fired or let go, mutually part, like whatever had to go, whatever would have to happen. But the fact that he keeps bringing that up, I don't think it's for no reason. There is a reason for that. So with that being speculated, and even before, obviously Pistons fans are going to be doing this, but especially after hearing this, it's caused a lot of people to talk about, okay, who will be replacing Monty? Who will be the Pistons head coach next year? Who should Pistons fans be looking at as potential replacements? And obviously, the first one that we talked about in the last episode was that whole idea of, oh, will Darvin Ham and Monty Williams just switch teams? I'd hope not. I would not want Darvin Ham as the Pistons' next head coach. I don't think he did a particularly great job in LA, and I wasn't too impressed. So I would not want Darvin Ham. He is a former Piston, obviously, but that's not the former Piston I'm talking about. The former Piston that I was referencing much earlier in the episode is Chauncey Billups. According to some reports, NBA teams across the league are monitoring his situation in Portland. I believe they just got rid of their entire coaching staff outside of him, including his, I believe he said his brother or his son just got fired from the staff. He's still remaining, but when something like that happens, it usually doesn't look too good for the head coach. Though they haven't said officially that they're firing Chauncey. So if they do, though, if they were to fire Chauncey Billups, should the Detroit Pistons have interest in Chauncey? No. I would not have interest in Chauncey as a head coach. Now, if he wants to go into, a front office role with the Pistons, maybe, sure. If he wants to be an assistant coach on the Pistons staff, I mean, sure. But I would not want Chauncey as the Pistons head coach. And there's numerous reasons for this. One, I don't know if Chauncey's a good coach. Like, has he proven to be a good coach in Portland? I don't know. I don't know how you could say that. I can't come out. I don't feel comfortable coming out and saying he's a bad coach. I don't think you really know. But I also don't feel comfortable trying to make the leap that he's a good coach. So that's, and I have doubts about it. I have more doubts now of him being a good coach after how it went in Portland. Obviously, Portland isn't like a tanking situation. So it's hard to judge coaches like that who are first-time jobs and they're taking over a tanking team. Like, the win-loss is just going to be hard to go by. So that's one reason. The second reason is this, and it's the same thing I said about Darvin Ham in the last episode. It's going to be the same thing I say about any former Detroit Piston that pops up as a potential hiring for them. If the Pistons, this is how I view it. This is just the way I look at it. If the Pistons were to go out and hire a former fan favorite of the team, of the fan base, if they were to do that, that's more a PR move than it is what's best for this franchise move. I do not want a former Piston, someone with ties to Detroit that will make the fans happy and make them happy for like a month before the season starts and everyone's mad to be the coach or be the hiring for whatever position. I don't care where you're from. I said this in the last episode. I don't care if you're from Detroit. Don't care if you're from Alabama, Alaska, Hawaii, Europe. I don't care where you're from. The Pistons should just get the best head coach. They should just get the best president of basketball operations. It shouldn't be, oh, well, this guy has ties to Detroit, so let's interview him. No. Can you just get the best possible option? No, I don't care who it is. If it's the best option on the market, go get them. Because I do not view it, again, if the Pistons were to go out and hire Chauncey, I do not believe they'd be doing that because they think he's the best option out there. I think they'd be doing that because they know the fan base is on their ass the last 2 years. They'd be doing it because people are not buying tickets. People are not wanting to pay attention to the team. And they know if they hire a former going to work team, the finals MVP that everyone loves, Mr. Big Shot, everyone's going to go crazy. Everyone's going, oh, Mr. Big Shot's back in Detroit. Yay. And everyone's going to want to buy tickets and go support Chauncey because they love Chauncey. So I view that as a PR move. So I would not like the Pistons to do it because, one, like I said, Chauncey has not proven to be a good coach. And two, anytime something like this comes up, I view it, like I said, more as a PR move. I rarely ever see it as a team doing what's best for the team, actually, getting the best option out there. So, no, I would not be interested in Chauncey as the Pistons head coach. In other head coaching news, Charles Lee just got the Charlotte Hornets head coaching job. The finalist was Charles Lee and J.J. Redick. And they ended up giving it to Charles Lee. If you remember, Charles Lee was a finalist for the Pistons job this past offseason with Kevin Ollie and Jaron Collins until Tom Gores called an audible and went out and pursued Monty Williams, and now we see how that's went. Charles Lee had a lot of favorites in the front office, or a lot of fans, I should say, not favorites, but a lot of fans in the front office, in the Pistons front office, that is, last offseason. So I think it would be interesting, one, to see how he does in Charlotte now, because truly is one of those, if only kind of situations. And secondly, if the Pistons were to move on from Monty, I'd have to assume that Charles Lee would have been one of their main guys they'd be interviewing. But now he's off the market. So I wonder who's going to be, if they do decide to move on from Monty, which I think, and we just got news, just from my phone or from Twitter. This is who I want to give credit to who reported it just now. Chris Haynes, or the first person to do it was actually Shams. Frank Vogel just fired as Phoenix Suns head coach. So that's another guy that's on the market. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons moved on from Monty if they'd interview Frank. Like, I wouldn't be surprised by that. But, I mean, that's a name to keep an eye out for. I'm telling you guys to keep an eye out for JJ Redick. If he's not hired by a head coaching job and the Pistons do move on from Monty, keep an eye out for JJ. I think he would be someone that the Pistons would interview. Chris Quinn is someone I would pursue and at least interview if I was the Detroit Pistons. Those are the names, but like I said, Mr. Big Shot, loved him as a player, one of my favorites of all time, but the Pistons they don't need to be going out there making PR moves. They need to go out there and find the best person possible for this job to turn it around. And it's going to be hard for me to believe that that's the reason why you're hiring a former Piston and not because you're trying to get the fans to shut up and leave you alone. I'm just not going to buy it. So, and by the way, anyways, I hope that Chauncey keeps his job in Portland and gets a chance to actually coach like a decent team. So, hope he doesn't even get fired. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about that. Comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukuYo. When we come back, LeBron shouts out a former Detroit Pistons, recalls a former series against the Pistons. We'll talk about that when we come back. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You've already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, and some include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machines. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now on Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel @Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It's another great way to support the podcast. So on the latest episode of Mind the Game podcast, JJ Redick and LeBron James podcast, they have together when they just talk basketball, they break down plays, they do all that stuff. I absolutely love the podcast. I think it's the best out there. I'm a nerd for that type of stuff. It makes my day. I love listening to it. Learning new play, what they call it in the NBA, like certain plays, certain actions, learning new stuff. I love it. So I was listening to it, and on this last episode, JJ asked LeBron, like, who's a defender that after a series was over, a playoff series was over, you were like, man, I'm happy I don't have to go against that guy no more, or that guy earned your respect, or that guy caught your attention. And I'm not gonna lie, I easily thought he was gonna say Kawhi Leonard. I thought he was gonna say Kawhi back in the San Antonio Spurs game, final series, but he didn't go with Kawhi. I did not expect this name to be the name he brought up, but he brought up former Detroit Piston Stanley Johnson. And he talked about how Stanley Johnson made him work really hard in that 2015 playoff series, which is, my God, almost 10 years ago. Crazy to think about that. That's insane to think about. That it's almost 10 years ago. That's crazy for me to even say. But that 2015 playoffs, everyone remembers that. I think every Piston fan remembers that, where Stanley Johnson was going at LeBron, chirping at him in the postgame pressers. It was a competitive sweep. But Stanley went right at LeBron, and LeBron talked about how Stanley earned his respect. He had the lateral quickness, the strength to keep up with LeBron. He really made him work. And that he earned respect for Stanley after that series, that he was a really good defender and showed that he could be a really good defender in this league. I bring that up because, one, it's cool to hear LeBron talk about the Detroit Pistons anyway. Like, the fact that the Pistons are a team that pops up in his mind when talking about his career, one of the, big moments of his career, or something that a big takeaway from his career. Thought it was pretty cool to reference that. I'm sure there's a lot of LeBron fans that listen to this podcast. And secondly, man, I can't believe Stanley didn't work out, man. So tough. After that 2015 playoff series, everyone thought Stanley was like the savior of the Pistons franchise. Like, there is not one person I talked to or ran into at school that did not think that Stanley Johnson was the next face of the franchise, that he was going to save Detroit. Everyone believed him. I loved Stanley Johnson as a kid. Like, in high school, he was my favorite player. I thought he was going to turn the Pistons around. And my God, did it not happen. Like, it went completely south. I think that back injury impacted him a lot. I think the numerous injuries he sustained his second year really hurt him and zapped away a lot of his athleticism, but just didn't improve offensively enough, man. And that seems to be the story with a lot of Piston prospects. They just don't improve offensively. Like, I don't know what goes on in the Piston developmental program, what they're missing, how they aren't, like, developing these guys. But all of these players that the Pistons have come through their organization that have a base skill set, a base skill set on the defensive end, a base skill set in playmaking. Like, you can see an NBA player in there if they just improve offensively. And has there been one that actually has for the Pistons? I can't think of one. There just hasn't even been one. Even like Andre. Like, Andre, I think Andre got better almost every year of his career. But did he get that much better offensively that you would have wanted? No. Like, I can't even, like, Greg Monroe, like, even during his time here, did he, like, develop an outside shot or something? I mean, at that time, you didn't really need an outside shot, so I guess you can't really hold that against him. But, like, I don't know. I can't think of a rookie that came in that we were saying, oh, he can play defense, he can pass, he just needs to develop that offense. If he can just develop that shot, he can be a real player. And obviously, another name that I'm probably going to live down for the rest of my life by Pistons fans. They won't ever get over it. But Killian Hayes, another player like that. Like, there's so many players the Pistons have had come through like Stanley that just never improved offensively. And I honestly think it's a really big concern within the Pistons organization that this continues to happen. And it really concerns me with Ausar moving forward. Because, like I said, we just haven't seen it happen. We just, like, we've seen it happen all the time with other organizations. But with the Pistons, it just doesn't. For whatever reason, they just can't do it. So hopefully Ausar is the diamond in the rough and that it changes. But I don't know. That's just what my mind went when I listened to the podcast. At first, I was like, man, Stanley didn't work out, man. That sucks. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, man, we've had a lot of Pistons come through the team that kind of had the same, like, not the exact same skill set, but the same idea of, like, you just improve some offensively, you can be a player. And they just never do. And it's just like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? How can you miss this many times on that? But it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Cougar Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace out.